Welcome to Las Vegas, Nevada, site of the 2018 West Coast Conference Men's Basketball Media Day. We greet you here in mid-October. It's baffling that college basketball season is already back upon us. We're inside Orleans Arena today, site of Media Day, and of course site of the West Coast Conference Championships in March, which will crown the champion and send them off to the NCAA tournament. Alongside Casey Jacobson, I'm Steve Quiss. Again, it is our privilege to be back on the coverage of West Coast Conference basketball and to win this thing and perhaps could challenge again for another Final Four berth.
When we talk about the WCC, we have to start with the Gonzaga Bulldogs, likely going to be ranked in the top 5 in the country. And surprising to me, they've never been ranked preseason top 5 in the country. They return a lot of really good players. St. Mary's possibly in a rebuilding year, Steve. They lost Jacques Landale, Emmett Nahr, and Calvin Hermanson. So maybe this is the year that BYU can try and challenge Gonzaga for the top spot.
Before we look forward, let's look back to last year's stats. You'll see Gonzaga on top, regular season champs. Only loss was at their place, the Kendall to St. Mary's. And then there's that St. Mary's team, 28 wins before the NCAA tournament, finished with 30 wins and yet didn't get a berth.
Really disappointing for Randy Bennett and the Gales, but they'll probably be back. If you look in the middle standings, San Diego Toreros were the surprise team to me last year. The San Francisco Dons were also pretty consistent. Those two teams are trying to make a jump forward this year as well.
Yeah, and every year we're always talking about who's going to be in the 4th spot. This year we actually can talk about perhaps who's going to challenge for the number 2 spots. And the conference, at least after Gonzaga, looks wide open. All right, let's take a look at our schedule for today. We're going to start with the Loyola Marymount Lions, who will join us here in about 5 minutes. Their head coach, Mike Dunlap, their terrific scoring guard, James Bateman, will join us. Lorenzo Romar taking over Pepperdine. That's the new coaching addition here this year. You're excited to visit with Lorenzo.
Really excited to visit with Lorenzo, Damon, Mike Dunlap, all the coaches. This is a fun day.
All right, when we return, Mike Dunlap and James Bateman here to discuss Loyola Marymount and their perspectives for 2018-2019. We're back to West Coast Conference Media Day in Las Vegas right after this. All right, welcome back to Orleans Arena. We start 2018 West Coast Conference Media Day. We begin with the Loyola Marymount Lions and their head coach, Mike Dunlap, and their scoring guard, James Bateman. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Hope you enjoyed your trip here, and I want to talk a little bit about this season. One of the first notes that sticks out is 84% of your scoring is back. I know you've had good recruiting classes in the past. Is this maybe the season you feel like, hey, we've got a real good opportunity to challenge?
and the stability of the roster is key, like you said. And the year before, we lost a lot. We lost about 80% of our scoring. So, yeah, we're excited about the fact that we're returning all those guys, and none other than James Bateman next to us, who is a first-team All-League kind of player for sure, and that leadership. And now he's been around the block the second time, and I think that'll really help him as well.
Coach, you guys had the awesome opportunity to travel to Australia this summer. I'd like to ask you how that went and what you learned about your roster during those few weeks.
Well, the three things that we were trying to get accomplished was, one is play against pros and see what that felt like, which we did, and we were 3-1 on that tour, so we were successful in that endeavor. Two is get a little bit closer in a relaxed environment like Australia. You know it, Casey, it's great, and they really do help you relax because the people have a certain way about them. And then third is that finish the trip on the Great Barrier Reef with intention and purpose to have fun. And we were able to do that, and it finished on a high note. We even got James in some gear, and he went in the ocean.
Nice. He's starting to sweat just thinking about it right now.
And a guy from Milwaukee, and being where he's from, in all seriousness, it was fantastic to watch the guys get after it in the ocean.
It was Shark Week when you were down there. Did you see any great whites or anything like that? No?
If it was Shark Week, I probably wouldn't have touched the water.
Yeah, neither would I. Well, let's talk. Your coach talked about consistency of the roster, so you have a lot of weapons that you can feed the ball into. I think of Eli Scott and Marcuson. What is your thoughts on the guys that are coming back, that you're supporting cast? And now you've got a year under your belt. Most guys have a year under their belt.
Yeah, I think it's going to be real helpful for us that we got the experience returning. Matthias, like you said, he's a big presence inside, and Eli Scott will be very helpful for us. But we also got a couple new additions that can really help us out. So with that experience coming back, adding on those new additions, I think we should be able to make a push this year.
James, you probably have a lot of really good feelings sitting in this building right now because the way you ended the season here, 29 points in a win against Portland, followed that up with 27 against Gonzaga. You did lose that game, but what did you take away from those performances, taking those into the offseason? And then the other question I want to ask you is, as a playmaker, how do you balance scoring versus setting people up and when to take over a game?
Well, really what I took away is just the experience playing in an environment like that. It was amazing. And then, like you said, we ended in defeat. But having your teammates, knowing that you got your back and that you got another year to give it another try. So that was one thing that was just encouraging. Like, hey, everybody was like, hey, we'll be back next year. We're going to get these guys. And just having that confidence instilled in us. So that was good. And then the second thing is, what was your second question?
How do you balance scoring versus playmaking?
Oh, I mean, it's real. It's a difficult thing that I had coming from junior college. I had to adapt to it. So my first year was real helpful for me, balancing that. It's just getting guys open and having your teammates instill confidence in you when they tell you, like, hey, man, you passing too much, you need to score for us, or they're just saying, like, hey, try to get people involved. It's really pretty much the team just helping me keep that balance. So.
No one ever told me that I passed too much.
No, they never did.
Not
I know. I covered your career. I know. Well, as much as we love watching James play and score, Eli Scott was amazing last year in what he could do. What has he done over the summer to improve his game?
Mostly shooting. I mean, he's got to be able to catch and shoot the three. And so even though it may be a little bit painful on the front end of it, I think that in the preseason, you've got to have them take that shot with freedom. And also is the ability to make your free throws like your putt game. They say that you drive for dough, you drive for show, but you putt for dough. And so he's got to be able to make his free throws. He's a guy who's going to get 8 to 10 free throws a game because he's so active on the glass. And so we put an enormous amount of time in on that endeavor.
James, I found out that you're a psychology major off the air. I wanted to ask, maybe can you fill in our audience what you'd like to do with that degree when you're done playing?
Well, really, I like to go into, like, being a therapist or something and just helping people. I like helping people. I just enjoy it. So, like, probably go into sports therapy and just help athletes that's going through the same thing I'm going through, the same struggles I'm going through. I feel like it'll be easy to help sports athletes. So.
And Coach Dunlap, do you do any psychology with your group as a team to help them kind of, be tough mentally on the floor?
Yeah, number one is that I think that you always access outside sources that are experts, be it somebody who can teach your team how to meditate, and or the proper breathing before you step in on a free throw. As you know, those things, that routine's really, really important. And the second part of that is to make sure that those people are consistent in the information that they're giving your players. And so we use Pete Newell Jr. His father played at our school, and he's a dear friend who comes in quarterly to be with us for a week at a time. And he's the kind of guy who challenges us to say, hey, there's a tough guy drill right here, and he'll put it in, and then we'll do it.
In favor of the new schedule, moving conference-wise from 18 games down to 16?
I think that all of us had to take a step back and say, look at the top of the pyramid, exposure for and the flexibility for all the teams to maybe garner a couple big games, be it Gonzaga going to Kansas and being able to platform our league on that. And you mentioned St. Mary's. They had 30 wins. Debatable whether they should have been in or not by those pundits. We certainly felt that they should be in, but when they're on TV like that more and they have that flexibility, I think that'll help their cause to get us into the NC2A and get 2 and 3 teams in there. So I think it's a real positive.
Yep. James, I want to ask you, this is your last year of college basketball, and I know you've only played at LMU for a couple of seasons, but what is the legacy that you want to leave this year when you exit campus?
The legacy really I want to leave is just really with the team that I'm with, the teammates that I have. I just want to leave the legacy that he was a great teammate. He gave it all he had every time he went out there on the floor, and no regrets. Like, just go out and give it my all, and that's pretty much all I can ask for, and I know things will play out by itself.
What are the goals that you have as an individual and also maybe for the team this season?
Well, one main goal that I have for the team is just finishing above what we did last year, just improving that and building on that. We took a step back last year, but I mean, we had 7 new people. So now that we got pretty much the whole team back, it's just making an improvement, making a jump, and then giving a run at the tournament here. So.
Speaking of new players, who might we see, who might we look out for this year that will be in your mix this year that we haven't discussed yet?
Jordan Bell and Damian Douglas are the 2 new ones. Damian from Fresno and Jordan local, Inglewood High School. One's a stretch 4, can play the 5, and Jordan Bell. And then Damian Douglas is just athleticism personified. Had a lot of success at Memorial High School, which is a powerhouse out of Fresno. Sure. And so those 2 are definitely great additions for our team. And then we have a young man who was the Bulgarian National Player of the Year. And Ivan is somebody that's a 6'7.5" Euro guy who just plays the game at a relaxed state where you kind of scratch your head, and they just have a disposition that makes you smile. And all 3 guys will see minutes this year.
Well, you guys have done outstanding locally lately and internationally for a long time. We thank you for your time, Coach and
luck,
James.
guys.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah,
we appreciate it. We'll be up there doing we got our schedule. We're going to do a couple of broadcasts up there, so we're excited. All right, when we return, we will talk to the other half of the PCH Cup rivalry here. And Lorenzo Romar and his Pepperdine Waves. He's the new head coach up there in Malibu, making a return after 19 seasons away. We'll talk with Lorenzo and the Waves next. And we welcome you back to Las Vegas, Nevada for the 2018 West Coast Conference Men's Basketball Media Day. We're inside Orleans Arena alongside Casey Jacobson. I'm Steve Quist. We just talked to the LMU Lions. Now we'll talk to the Pepperdine Waves, the other part of that PCH Cup rivalry. And a welcome back to Lorenzo Romar, who was there through 1999. You stepped away for 19 years to do other things.
Hasn't aged a bit either. Looking, looking like 35 over here.
True.
Your thoughts on being back in Malibu?
Man, I'm excited. I'm really excited. When I first got the call that I could potentially go to Pepperdine, it was something that I didn't have to think a whole lot about. It was, at this stage of my career, it was somewhere that I thought it would be a fun challenge. I thought it was somewhere where we could be successful, and here it is.
Coach, you have been an amazing recruiter throughout your entire coaching career, and this year is no exception. The class that you brought in, I'm super excited about. I'm sure you are as well. Can you talk a little bit? I know there's a lot of guys. Can you talk a little bit about some of them? In particular, Kessler Edwards, the brother of Cameron, coming to Malibu this year.
Kessler has been outstanding up to this point, and we, fortunately for us, the other staff had already recruited and signed Kessler when you take over a program and you have an incoming freshman that is of his caliber, you're pretty excited about that. He wanted to come and play with his brother. And then after that, we were able to get a lot of local kids. Andre Ball played at Chino Hills, won a state championship. Daryl Polk played at Long Beach Poly, a point guard, really, really quick point guard. Victor Obaya,
Here we go.
from Hillcrest High School in Riverside. Is a shot blocker. He's going to be a good basketball player for us. Jackson Stormo, 6'8", post player. Those are the main guys that are coming in that we're able to bring. We had a couple of transfers, Keith Smith and Michael Cage from Oregon.
And they'll be sitting out this year. They'll be eligible next season. Is that right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Colby, your thoughts on this group, too, because you've had, a handful of practices now. Are you guys meshing and melting into this cohesive unit that you want to be?
I would say that for sure. Compared to last year, I think the team is a lot more together. The returners trying to bring the younger guys together. I think that's been one of the most important things, just trying to become a better team, do things together outside of basketball, which will make us successful.
And I would assume you have a little bit more of a leadership role, right? Now you're no longer a freshman anymore, but now this almost becomes your unit, right?
Yes, it is. That's been my job now to, be a leader of the team. Coach Romar has, helped me with that, trying to be a positive leader, do different things to, help the team and, help us get wins.
Most freshmen, Colby, have no idea what they're doing their first year in college. You led all freshmen in WCC in scoring and assists. I would like to ask you, what is the next step for you? What are your goals this season, and what have you improved upon?
My goals this season, to win games. The stats and all that, have been there, last year, but we weren't winning. So, it doesn't matter how much I've done, stats-wise, but we weren't winning. So this year, I'm going to do whatever it takes to, help my team win, whether that's, leading, whether that's, passing the ball more, whatever it takes to get more wins, and just being able to step into the leadership role.
Is there a guy maybe at the NBA level that you pattern your game after, or that you watch and you say, I want to play like him?
I would say Damian Lillard, for sure.
What about Damian Lillard do you love?
Just his story of how he got to the NBA, just because he went to Weber State, it's not a high major school, was basically like an underdog. So basically, I just want to, look at him, try to take that to another level, try to, one day make it, one day be successful.
Yeah.
Injuries have always been a big problem the last few years up there. We love Marty Wilson, but he had the worst luck of anybody, and it's just like every time we would come to do a broadcast, like, oh, guess who's hurt and is missing, the next 9 games with a stress fracture. I would assume you have a healthy roster now, and that's a good thing, obviously.
Yeah, for the guys that are going to be eligible to play, we'll be, when we start playing our games, we'll be healthy. You go through pre-season practice, training camp, so to speak, you have nagging injuries. Guys miss practice here and there, but by the time we start playing, we should have a healthy roster.
But you don't do anything differently, do you? The way you approach practice, knowing that, I guess the last few years were just a fluke, that's what you said?
No, it's just unfortunate in sports, and as I've mentioned before, the public tend to look at the productivity, the end result, and forget what's going on behind closed doors. I don't care who you are, how good of a coach you are. If some of your top players or some of your players in your rotation that you're counting on aren't there with you.
Yeah. I mean, look at the injury woes there. 81 missed games last year due to injury, 99 the year before, and 10 of the 13 scholarship players missed multiple games.
Hard to win games when you're going through stuff like that.
Well, in the beginning of the year, so often coaches say, if we can stay healthy, then we can do this, and that's so true. So hopefully we can stay healthy.
We wish you the best of luck on that front. So, Coach Romar, although you look fantastic, you have matured as an individual. What is different in your second stint? It's like from your perspective. You were there in Pepperdine in the late 90s when I was in high school. Now you're here again. Does anything feel different, or is it like, oh, I've been here before?
Outside of the cost of real estate.
Yeah, that's right.
The familiarity of it is different than the first time. You kind of trial and error a little bit. First time as a head coach, I had a great teacher in Jim Herrick, and who I worked for when I was an assistant at UCLA. But now, after heading up my own program for 21 years, you have a little better understanding of what fits you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're trying to learn, you pick up something from that coach, this other coach, and maybe it's not your personality. It doesn't fit your personality. I have a strong belief now in what works for me as a head coach within my personality, what I'm comfortable with. There's certain things that are absolutes that you just can't negotiate. You can't compromise. You know what those things are. There's some absolutes that have to get done, or you're just not going to be successful. So there's a different mindset in that regard after the last.
And Colby, for you, the adjustment, freshman, now you're sophomore, you have a new coach. How has the adjustment been for Coach Romar? And be mindful that he's sitting right next to you and he controls your playing.
That's right.
It's been great. Coach Romar has made everyone, feel welcomed. Has given everyone confidence. And for me, coming from last year and then now with a new coach, he's helped me a lot. We watch film together. He makes sure he stays on me about little things that I need to work on. So it's definitely been positive.
We did the championships, right, last year, the regionals, and we saw two of your players. We were talking about this before, and Kessler, and we saw Andre Ball from Chino Hills. Talk to me about their development, too, because they looked like at the end of the year that was a huge get for Pepperdine, keeping them away from a Pac-12 school.
Definitely. I think Andre Ball is one of the most athletic players I've played with or ever seen. Like, he can really jump out of the gym. So his development, through these next years are going to be, incredible to watch. And then Kessler Edwards, younger brother of Cam, he just, he does it all. Long, he plays defense, can shoot the ball really well. He has a lot of room to grow, but right now he's doing really good.
I don't want to bring up too many negatives, but you guys didn't win a road game last year. So tell me, Colby, how is that going to change? What are you going to have to do to squeak out a victory on the road?
We're going to have to be a lot more disciplined. I think, coming in from last season, not winning the road game, I think, put our confidence down at times. But I think this year we have to be more disciplined, do the little things, that's going to take to get those wins, and just come together as a team, to get the job done.
Right. Gentlemen, we appreciate the time and good luck. And I know we're on a couple of Pepperdine games this year. We always love going up there. So
awesome. Good luck, guys.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate that. All right, coming up next, we'll visit with Damon Stoudemire and the Pacific Tigers, who had a really good end to last season, finished at 9-9 and won some big road games at the end of the year for a conference, by the way, that had a lot of teams win road games in the conference. We'll be back with that discussion next.
What would you like?
Steve Quist, Casey Jacobson back with you as we continue here 2018 West Coast Conference Media Day here in mid-October. The game starting, of course, early in the month of November. We couldn't be more excited. And we were excited about the finish that the Pacific Tigers had at the end of last year. And their head coach, Damon Stoudemire, joining us along with Jaleel Tripp here. Welcome. Thanks so much for coming and joining us. Tell us a little bit about your team this year, what we might see out of the Pacific Tigers, who had a little bit of a run at the end of the year.
Well, we just want to pick up where we left off. I thought we played well once conference play came around. We took lumps early on, but I think it paid off. We took off as a team when we inserted Jaleel at point guard. I thought he did a great job, manning the ship. He was a do everything player for us. But I really like our squad. We returned obviously Jaleel. We returned Roberto Gallinat, who was our leading scorer. But I'm excited about the new guys that we have added. I think we got guys that nobody know about, but I think everybody will know about them once conference play starts, or once the season starts, excuse me.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Bailey, who transferred to us from junior college, Pima Junior College. I think he's going to be a really good player for us. He's a four-man that can, it's almost like he has an old school game. Like, it's funny because I tell him a lot. I can tell that he played with older guys, growing up, because that's the way his game is. Jabril Price Noel, kid from Toronto, Canada, about 6'8". I think he's going to be one of the best freshmen in this league, if not the best freshman. I think he's going to be a matchup problem for a lot of teams. He can play 1 through 4. He can guard 1 through 4, and I'm looking forward to seeing him on the floor. And lastly, Ajari Sani, freshman from Houston, who can really shoot the ball. So I like our team, and I like the depth that we have. And going into this, being my third year,
yeah.
I finally feel like the talent level is getting to where I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And practices are competitive, and there won't be a fall off,
mm-hmm.
when we go to the bench and things of that nature. So I'm looking forward to that.
Jaleel, you were one of my favorite all-around players in the WCC to watch last year, and I know you hail from Brooklyn, New York. Tough. Everybody who hails from Brooklyn is tough. You've gone through some physical hardships during your high school career. Can you talk a little bit about that and your path to Pacific?
So going into my junior year, springtime, just about to get ready for the season. We had a scrimmage, and I ended up slipping and breaking my leg, and cracked the tibia and popped the growth cap. And then shortly before that, I was struck by a stray bullet. Coming from the girls' basketball game, heading home with my teammates, and that just set me back a year. I was out for a year, but my recovery time was fast, so I rehabbed real well, and I ended up being committed to Rutgers fresh out of high school, but Eddie Jordan had got fired before I could get there, and by that time, all the schools was closed, so I couldn't get enrolled, so I just decided to go the junior college route. Ended at South Plains Junior College, one of the best junior colleges in the country. We ended up finishing third in the in the country, actually. And around mid-December, Coach Stoudemire and his staff came by to see Roberto Gallinat, my teammate now here, and I caught their eye, and I got on the radar, and they just was recruiting me hard after that. They was at almost all the practices, and when we went to Hutchin Nationals, they was at every practice and every game, and I just felt like it was a real family atmosphere, and that's what I wanted to come into college.
Does it help to come with Gallinat, and you already have a chemistry there on the court that you could just carry over?
Yeah, I think a lot of teams and the coaches seen that last year with us playing off each other, knowing each other keys just from junior college, and then helping the new guys that we have now. Since we got the chemistry, we want to kind of get chemistry with those guys, but me and him being teammates now on this level is definitely a big help.
What's it like to be a developing point guard with this guy as your head coach? Because I don't know if you know, your generation might not know how good this guy was.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's a great learning experience to learn from one of the best point guards to play the game. And he teaches me a lot of things on the fly, and just because of my basketball IQ, I can pick up real well. So there's a lot of things that I'm learning on the fly. It's tough, but at the same time, it's all good because I want to learn those things and be able to put what he want on the court from his mind onto the court as a player.
Damon and I were teammates in 2008 at the NBA level with the Memphis Grizzlies. And I remember during that year, Damon, a lot of timeouts. When we weren't in the game, sitting on the bench, we would have discussions about life and hoops. I knew you were going to be a fantastic coach. I want to ask you, Damon, now in your third year, how have you grown in those 3 years as a head coach?
You know, for me, I think I try to coach off a lot of feel now. At first, I think that coming in, you try to do everything. You can't do everything. Last year, it was a different year because we had so many injuries and things of that nature. But last year helped me out a lot because we didn't practice a lot. And it kind of went back to the old NBA days.
Yeah.
And so now, coming into this year, I feel like my feet are firmly on the ground in terms of, what I want, and how I want to do it. But I still try to listen to the guys. We still only go about an hour and 25 minutes. Now, it might seem like it's longer to them, but that's really all we're going at the end of the day. But I really feel like, I know exactly what I want, but I'm always looking to get better at the same time. And I say this a lot, I learn as much from the kids as I do from just, talking to other coaches. They're the ones that you got to know. They're the ones that you got to have a feel for, whether this is too much, not enough, whatever that might be. But, those are the things for me as I move into my third year that I feel like I got a grasp on.
If I'm not mistaken, you guys played pretty well, especially at the end of the year on the road. And as a conference, I was crunching the numbers. Like in conference play, road teams won 41 games. That seems like an extremely high number. And you had a big win against BYU as well. So you feel like you're closing the gap, maybe on the road and against some of those top echelon teams?
Well, I think that we are. We were, obviously the top of the league, St. Mary's and Gonzaga. We were there. We were there with St. Mary's. We were there with Gonzaga one game. We just couldn't finish it. We did have a big win against BYU. I think everybody else is trying to play catch up to that pack, but we had some good wins. I think we have a mental toughness to our team, and if we can sustain play for 40 minutes, because to me, with us, it's not going to be the physical ability. I feel like we had a physical ability. I feel like we improved in the areas that we needed to improve on, and I think that it's the mental capacity now. I feel like the last 4 minutes of the game, I think we lost 10 games. Excuse me, we lost I think 10 games by 10 points or less, but we lost 5 of those games by 6 points or less. So that's 2-possession game. So that doesn't have anything to do with the physical part of it. That's executing on both ends of the floor coming down the stretch.
That's great.
Jalil's going to try and fix that this year, I know. I want to ask you, going back to your all-around game, so a couple of years ago we had a kid, Kyle Collinsworth, out of BYU, who set the record, NCAA record for triple-doubles. I feel like you are the one person that could get a triple-double in the WCC this year if I had to choose. I want to know, where does your style of playing come from?
Well, my favorite player is LeBron James, so that's where like the overall aspect comes from. But just as a young kid, I've always been a great playmaker, and I've always been like physically gifted. So that's where like the scoring ability and everything else, being able to be a two-way player, comes into play as well. So just me and being able to play both ends of the floor, and I like to see my teammates score just as much as I like to score, and I like to pass the ball. So that's where my overall game really comes from.
Everybody always says that, Damon. I love to see my teammates score more. It's usually not true, but when I watch Jalil, it is true, is it not?
No, it's true. I just told somebody this yesterday, I think it was, and every time I make a comparison, I don't like to, don't think about the player and what the player actually did, but Jason Kidd, to what he was for Cal, he's Jason Kidd for me. When Jason Kidd was in college, Jason Kidd didn't score the ball, but he scored when he needed to. I think Jalil can score. I think he can score when he needs to. That's not who he is, though. He's always trying to make make the right pass and the right play, and you know that's why I appreciate his game so much.
Wow, a lot of pressure. He had the triple-double comparison. He's saying, Jason, just remember when I come to Stockton, I didn't put any pressure on. All right, we'll go to Dutch Brothers Coffee and have a good time. All right, guys, we appreciate it. Damon, thanks.
Right,
Julio,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. We look forward to seeing you guys hopefully make a run at the top of the conference. All right, when we return, we're going to talk to the Portland Pilots, their head coach, Terry Porter, and then one guy we saw knock down a bunch of threes last year, Josh McSwinigan. We'll see what's up with the Pilots as they get ready to navigate the 2018-2019 season. WCC Media Day continues from Las Vegas next. Welcome back to Orleans Arena, site of 2018 West Coast Conference Men's Basketball Media Day, and then we'll return in March for the West Coast Conference Basketball Championships. There'll be a little bit of a change this year with the two top teams, like the old days, getting a bye into the semifinals, and of course the conference season schedule has changed too, back from 18 games down to 16. But time to talk about the Portland Pilots, and we welcome in their head coach Terry Porter and Josh McSwinigan. And I want to start with you. The last time we saw you, I think you were knocking down 10 threes at Jenny Craig Pavilion. You remember that game? You still got that? I know Coach wants you to still have that.
Yeah, he still got that.
He does. All right, very good. Well, talk to me about your team, because it appears like you returned 4 starters on a rather young roster that seems to be getting better each year.
Yeah, and so, you know, we kind of took our lumps last year. We're playing a lot of young guys. We thought that, if we evaluate our roster from last year, it was important to get those young guys some experience, some on-floor experience. And, it's time for our guys to take that next step. Obviously, we hope that was a learning curve for them last year. They've been in the gym working really hard off this summer, getting the things that we think is important for our team to have take that next step. And so from that standpoint, we're excited about our team. A lot of our scoring is probably going to come from our perimeter play, but our bigs have done some growing in the offseason and gotten better. Diabate, who's one of our young guys from last year who played, has gotten stronger. It's really taken this time to get his body, his physicality part back up to speed in regards to playing at the college level. And so he's about 245, 250, and I feel that's going to serve him well. And then, overall, it's just our ability now to get better as a team at both ends of the floor. I think last year at times we lost some close games. Having young guys, having rookies, been one of the youngest teams in the nation, and hopefully we learn from that and we're able to close out some of those games. It's a big difference if you win 2 or 3 of those really close games, not only your record, but more importantly when you have a young team, for the morale, the overall confidence of a group of young men. You're trying to build something.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the majority of your offense probably will come from the perimeter. Last year, you guys were one of the better three-point shooting teams in the conference, 38%. But inside the arc, you guys struggle a little bit. Coach, how, because you're so perimeter-oriented, how do you manufacture, this is a question for both you guys, how do you manufacture buckets inside the arc?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the new wave thing is points in the paint, not so much the mid-range. I think we have to do a better job, and you hit it as we looked at the numbers and crunched the numbers as well. We did not do a good job of finishing at the rim, and so we've done some things this offseason and into the practice that really tried to answer that question and give our guys a sense and bring it to their awareness and let them know that that's the area we got to get better at. We got to be able to finish better, because good teams are going to take away maybe your 3 ball, and so you have to be able to have counters and attack the closeouts. And so we've talked about that. We have to be a team that shoot more free throws. We talked about that, so we have to draw more fouls. So I think those are 2 areas where you look at from last year to this year, okay, we got to show some growth in those areas to really help us in some of those road games and some of those close games.
And Josh, for you individually, you're a really good three-point shooter, but you can also go, I know I've seen you dunk many a times, right? How do you improve your game and not just be a perimeter shooter, but also score inside?
I think a lot of teams sort of, put me in the category of three-point shooter. So I think my aggressiveness, attacking closeouts, attacking people that are trying to, cut my three-point shot off. So I think getting to the basket and getting to the free throw line, like Coach said, is a big thing personally for me, because I don't want to be just a one-way player. So I think that's the main thing I got to think about.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the schedule. I think we talked to Mike Dunlap about it. Now it goes from 18 conference games down to 16 to benefit the teams at the top, right? But some teams that have been in the lower echelon, such as yourselves, you're not going to go to Gonzaga this year. You're not going to play St. Mary's at home. That could be a big advantage for you guys in moving up into the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there's 2 ways to look at it. Obviously, for me, playing in a Gonzaga environment is good for your team. I mean, obviously, it's a very challenging environment, but from a standpoint of trying to get them in the toughest environments against the best teams and have them learn through those experiences would be good. Obviously, the change has been for the overall better of the conference. I think I'm trying to put us in the best position to try to, from a national standpoint, stage to be getting multiple teams in the tournament. And so, not having those tough games on the road, it hurts and helps. I think I look at it that way. You always want to play against the best teams in their environment, but in the big scope of things, it does give us a chance to go out and schedule some other games where we can get them in our building and have some home games and really build that home court advantage and help us in our win-losses.
Let me ask you, Josh, really quick. You don't go to the kennel, so is that something you look forward to? Hey, going to the kennel, and then is this a little disappointed that you're not going to the kennel this year?
As Coach said, it has its perks and it also has its losses. But as a player, you always want to play against these big teams, and the Gonzaga environment is a great environment to be in, and especially being an opposing team, you feel that sort of that possible intimidating factor of being in someone else's home gym. And I really like that environment. I like that sort of feel about it, that vibe. So I'm a little disappointed, but at the same time, we get a chance to play some other teams and hopefully do even better this year.
Josh, you're from England. Love the accent. So of course you were forced to play soccer as a young man. I'm sure of that. When did you get the basketball bug? When did it bite you? And when did you leave soccer and say, you know what, basketball is my thing?
Yeah, I started to grow when I was about 14. I grew about 5-6 inches over like a summer. And, soccer wasn't a thing anymore for me because I was getting a little slower, a little too big. So I joined a basketball team. I went through like a few different routes, but I joined a basketball team and I really liked the way it was going. And then one day my mom and dad came to me. They said, look, you either play, we can't do 3 different teams on a weekend. You can either play basketball on a Saturday or you play, because I played for 2 soccer teams on a Sunday, so either do that. So I ended up choosing basketball, and hopefully for the better. So I'm liking it so far.
Definitely for the better. And you said that someday you have interest in becoming a coach. Tell a little bit more about that. Why do you want to be a coach? And what have you learned from Coach Porter here about that?
Yeah, well, first of all, like, I can't really see myself going away from sports. You know, I get a little antsy every time I'm not doing anything, and you know, like, I love that sort of relationship coaches have with players, and you know, you can have that, you can bring players up from so many different backgrounds, so many different, you know, environments, and I think that's a great thing to build relationships and also help people with the knowledge that you've learned over the time. And Coach has had so much experience playing, and so he's passing that on to us players, and hopefully when, you know, basketball's all said and done with me, I want to be a coach and then pass on that knowledge that I have too.
Marcus Shaver made the All-WCC freshman team. His growth and development since we last saw him has been what you expected or better, or?
I think he's definitely, he's a hard worker. I mean, most of our guys, things great about our guys that love the gym, they're gym rats. That's the kind of guys I like to have, guys who really want to get better. But his growth has been huge. I mean, he's continuing to work on areas where we feel that he needs some more growth in. But again, to be able to come in as a freshman and play those valuable minutes and start some games for us, and this year he's ready to get going right away.
When you look at your schedule, Coach, what are some of the games that you're most excited? We already talked about the fact you're not going to the Kennel, but how about your non-conference schedule? Are there certain games that you're looking forward to playing and getting your young team, but up-and-coming team, some experience?
Yeah, I mean, there's some teams that made it to the tournament last year that's on our schedule. Fullerton, a team that we got to play them in their place. We've had some close matchups with those guys, played them in the Wooden Classic, then played them in our place last year. Colorado, another environment, those two teams. Those would be the first two teams that really jump out in regards to being road games. That really is a challenge. And obviously, look at the Rainbow Classic. There's going to be some teams in that tournament as well. So we have a good mix, I think, in our non-conference schedule of challenging environment, and then be neutral or obviously in someone's own home court that we feel is going to prepare us a little bit for our conference play. And we're excited about those challenges.
And you get to go to Hawaii, so you get to work on your tan, Josh, which you need one, by the way. Wow. For the record, he needs one. So let's get him some sun, Coach. Get him out in the pool.
Yeah, your two sons are on the roster, and that's probably an old question now, but is there anything new there or unique or fun or?
Fun. That's interesting. You describe it as fun.
Okay. So it's not, all right. Yeah, Mom probably doesn't think that way. I mean,
Mom does not think anything fun about it. She enjoys watching it. I think she enjoys having, obviously, her two boys on the court. That's never happened when they were young in high school, and we always wanted that to happen. So, but no, it's a challenge that, you know, most programs don't have to face with. But I think the rest of the players have done a good job in understanding that. I think my boys, from player to player relationship, from player to coach, from player to dad, all those different dynamics that you have to deal with. I think they've gotten to a point where they've been able to manage it. I think we all would say, players, my two sons, myself, that first year there was a lot of growing process in regards to that. And just, you know, from a coach to a dad, those parts was really difficult because when we were growing up, we always talked about basketball after practice, just during the day, anything, and some of that we've lost a little bit with the scheduling. I only get to really see them at practice, and then after practice they're off to class or weights, and they aren't staying at home, so I don't get the chance to have those conversations with them. So that's been a little bit of adjustment, but overall I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to manage that situation. And at the end of the day, what an unbelievable opportunity for me. I mean,
exactly.
I spent more time with those kids in the gym, working, and them both wanting to become Division I scholar athletes, and now for me to be on their journey. This is not my journey, this is their journey.
Sure.
And I'm so thankful to be able to be a part of it.
It's awesome. We appreciate it.
Thank
Terry
you,
Porter,
thank you.
Josh McSligan, thank you guys.
Good luck,
and
guys.
The Portland Pilots.
Josh, let that thing fly, man. Just let it fly.
But more importantly, work on the tan.
That's right.
All right, we'll return here to WCC Media Day coming up shortly. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and then when we come back, you can still keep watching us on the W.TV, but we're also transition on to Stadium and TV there at the top of the hour, the noon hour, where we'll visit with Gonzaga and St. Mary's and BYU, San Diego, San Francisco, all those still coming up. So Casey and I will be back shortly here with more to come. Take a little break, and we will invite you to join us on Stadium for more coverage of WCC Men's Basketball Media Day after this. Okay. Okay. All right, for those of you watching us on Stadium, we welcome you to the WCC Men's Tip-Off Preview Show on the W.TV. If you want to catch the rest of our show, then tune in to WCCSports.com for our live stream. That, at the end of this segment? Oh, okay. Oh, that's right, because this thing only goes for like a couple, like 3 teams or something, and then...
4 teams.
Okay.
It's the projected.
So then the
top
5th
4.
is...
The 15